What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Reporting from the Kingdom podcast, your number one source for all Chiefs info and news. I'm your host, Bob, joined by my friend Charles, and we have got a great episode in store for you today. So let's get right into it. The Chiefs with a great Super Bowl victory, 25-22 over the Niners. Patrick Mahomes, your Super Bowl MVP, his third. The Chiefs with the first repeat in almost 20 years. What do you think of that, Charles?
I think it's a great event for Kansas City, a great event for the Chiefs, and of course a great event for Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. It really sets the tone, I hope, for the next few years. And the start of a dynasty is really what this is. Hopefully the Chiefs can get that three-peat next year and really secure their place in NFL history. If you say they haven't already, just you wait for the next few years.
Exactly, and kind of piggybacking off that Andy Reid point, I totally agree with that. I think it does a ton for. I think he's starting to make a case for the GOAT head coach conversation. It's a little bit early to talk about that, but with how Belichick's been going since Brady left, I really think he's making a case that he might be the best coach of all time if he can keep up this legendary run.
Right, that's absolutely true. He had great seasons with the Eagles, and then he moved on to the Chiefs and immediately turned them around. And now here they are. This is his third Super Bowl title. So, I mean, pretty good for him.
Yeah, and then Mahomes has kind of skyrocketed. He's been steadily climbing, top 10 all time, top 20 all time, whatever, blah blah blah, and he's just top five, top three, top two, whatever you want to call it. He's cemented himself, his legacy, as one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He'll go down as someone who changed the game. And then,
Right, that's it's absolutely true. One of the top three quarterbacks of all time: Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Montana are the top three. I'd
yeah,
say right now,
that's
and
probably my
you
list.
could you could easily see Mahomes move up to number one if I mean
Yeah,
the commitment it would take to that. You saw Brady.
yeah,
I mean, how old was he? 40
45 and
something
he's in
years
his
old.
third.
He'd have to stay in. Yeah, he'd have to stay in for what? That'd be like 20, like 15 more years. I don't know. I can't count.
He'll be like
So,
17, I'm pretty sure, 'cause I think he's 28 right now. And then,
yeah, then 17.
yeah. So diving right into the Super Bowl, it was a great game. Chiefs started off not being able to get much going on offense, playing some good defense.
Mm-hmm. Go right off with the defense really started off great. San Francisco starts it and go 50 yards in the first five plays, and we force a fumble on McCaffrey, which really felt really good as a Chiefs fan. But then you see a three and out by the Chiefs, and you're like, it's not over. And then, of course, defense shows up again, stops San Francisco, and then the Chiefs, and then Mahomes gets it back, and then once again, four plays, and then a punt, and then back to that. And the Chiefs defense only can hold out so long, and you
Exactly.
start seeing things like the 49ers march down, get a field goal, and then
Then they hit that trick
Chiefs
play to
offense,
Jennings.
yeah, Chiefs offense just couldn't get anything going because you saw their fumble, more punts, field
Yeah.
goal before the end of the half. Just not much was being able to get going. You know what I mean, Bob? What
Yeah.
do you got to say to that?
Yeah, they finally started getting a rhythm with that bomb to Hardman. I say rhythm more of, they finally got that big play and then instantly there we go, fumble. And I mean, I love
Exactly, and
Pacheco. He's had a great year, but this was not his best game. That
that
fumble
almost
killed him.
cost them the game there. And you saw that was when Travis Kelce on the sideline was like losing it with Andy Reid and like obliterated him.
Yeah, and I honestly think on that, I think that was blown way out of proportion. It's football. They do that. That's their relationship. But it wasn't. You could tell the tension was very high right there.
That tension was high, and like you're in that scenario, and once the Chiefs got down 10-0 after that trick play and McCaffrey for the touchdown, that was when you started feeling pretty bad.
The main thing,
Luckily, able to march back down for the field goal to save it.
yeah, the main thing that kept me hope was I kept this hope throughout the entire game. We've been here before all season. We fought this adversity, fought it and fought it and fought it. had the drops. And ultimately that resurfaced with Marquez Valdez-Scantling having a great touchdown catch off that fake punt, not off that muffed punt, sorry, and that was a game
Yeah,
changer.
once you got into the second half, and it just started off with the Mahomes interception. Like you take the field goal right before half, go into the halftime show, and then come back out, and you're like, all right, Mahomes tied this back up, and he immediately throws an interception, and luckily the Chiefs defense shows up and forces a 3-and-out, but then it's a 3-and-out by Mahomes.
Yeah,
And then by the time the ball again, they march it downfield, but it's only a field goal, and you just not feeling too good. And of course, the Chiefs special teams, all right, the one real clear advantage you saw that the Chiefs had
yeah, they
going
had that
into
advantage.
is
They
where the Chiefs
yeah,
have it.
they had that all the way through
And
the game.
they did. And off of that muffed recovery by the 49ers, and that was when the Chiefs offense really came back to life.
Yeah, that kind of hit them into that gear. That quick one play to MVS, then took them a little bit longer, but then they started moving the ball again late. Got the score they needed to tie it up, send it to overtime. Defense with another great stop, and then I just want to talk about Trent McDuffie. He played an incredible game. McDuffie, I think there's an argument for him to be Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, I know. I agree with you there. There's a strong argument for that to be made, but I mean, yeah, strong argument there.
Yeah, I mean McDuffie, he was making plays all over. He put a master class on. I've watched the film. I plan on making some videos about that later. I've watched the film. That was a master class on how he was able to just take Debo away from the game, and then he had some other big plays with that potentially game saving late in the game. Third down, Niners get a first down that may end the game almost. He's right in there for a pressure, tips the ball. Chiefs are able to force a field goal, and Mahomes, as he
Yep.
does many a time, drives right down the field and rips their heart out once again.
And you know who else really was great on the Chiefs defense? Chris Jones. I've seen a lot of people saying that Chris Jones was the real MVP with two solos and two quarterback hits and a lot more pressures than that.
Yeah,
Really, he was the one that kept the defense alive for the Chiefs.
yeah,
He really kept Purdy, McCaffrey, and Debo on their toes.
he saved two touchdowns with having
Yup,
some
really
on
was
those overthrows.
really saved it there.
Yeah, and I'll give my props to Purdy. He played a good game. Purdy played really good, but you could
Yeah.
tell when the lights got brightest, he started to get a little bit flustered.
Yep.
He just
Yeah, Purdy, all credit to him. When you're the first, when the lights come out and you're under the lights, you panic. And I think that's kind of what happened with Purdy in the late game. He was playing as good as he did, but the Chiefs defense, they really stepped up and were able to show up when they needed it the most. They shut Purdy down, and all credit is given to Purdy. All right, I respect he is a great player, and I'm sure that he'll be back on the stage.
yeah,
But
he'll be
today
back.
was the Chiefs. That Super Bowl was the Chiefs game.
Yeah, and then George Kittle was a nothing. He was a not factor. I haven't watched
Uh,
film on how Spags was able to contain him, but he was held.
I it
He kept his
actually I saw
composure.
on that the Chiefs receiving, yeah, 2 receptions, 4 yards. There was a whole thing going into the game about how Kittle was not going to be. He most likely was not going to be weaponized
Huh.
heading in the game, is what most people were saying, just because that was not how they were going to focus it. And you got to wonder if maybe they should have, because Kittle, obviously, one of the best tight ends in the this season, was a better tight end than Travis Kelce for most of the regular season.
I
So
think
you got to wonder if that was a
maybe.
missed opportunity.
Yeah, he's hard to tackle when he gets going. It might have done them some good to
Yeah,
get him
I know.
in the
So
game more. Get him more
they
involved.
depended on him for more of as an offensive lineman than as a uh tight end.
And once again, people in the discussions about the best tight ends, they say, oh well, this guy can block. Yeah, your great blocking tight end had 2 catches for 4 yards, and your team lost the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, the tight
Oh,
end
yeah,
who
I know,
can't
but
block had 9 catches, 96 yards, and dominated. So once again, proving Kelsey is potentially the best tight end of all time. I think he's the best tight end of all time. I think he's better than Gronk.
I think that is. I think you're right. Honestly, I don't know a whole lot about the greatest all tight ends of all time because it's stupid, but I do think that Kelsey, as of recently, is the best tight end.
Yeah, he's put up the performance. I know he technically didn't get 1,000 yards this year, but he missed 2 games, was because he missed that game in week 1, and then he rested the last week of the season, which at first I didn't like, but that was a smart move by them, showing maturity.
I know those are like Kelsey never misses games. He has only missed. I think that might have been the second game ever that he has sat out. The Week 18 game, I think, is the second game he's just sat out. And besides that, he's only missed like I can't think of the exact number, but it's like in the single digits of the amount of games that he has missed due to injury or just he is committed to the Chiefs, and that's something you really like to see as a
Yeah.
player on your team.
And I don't know how long he's got left in his career. It might be 1 year, might be 3 years, might be 5. I don't really know, but I know for however long we've got left, he's gonna be here. He's gonna be dominant.
Yep.
And I think it's the same thing
He
for Andy.
also said,
I don't know how long Andy will
see,
be here, but yeah,
yeah, Andy Reid. I mean, if he retires, I don't think he's going to be retiring anytime soon. But if he were, he would still go down as one of the greatest coaches of all time. But I think
yeah,
he's going to stay in because if he were to retire right now, I would still say that Bill Belichick probably has the better record as a coach.
yeah,
But I mean, he holds a franchise win record for the Chiefs and the Eagles, so I don't think he's going to be quitting anytime soon.
yeah. I know
Let
there's
me
a lot of
also
rumors
say
about him.
absolute props to McCole Hardman for stepping up on the biggest stage that he possibly will ever be in and scoring his first touchdown of the season as the game winner in the Super Bowl.
Yes, very much. Yes, he had a very good game, and that play at the end was incredible. I love the story of how he didn't even know he won it at first. He caught the ball and it didn't click that was the catch to win the Super Bowl. I love that. And then Mahomes runs
Yeah,
over and he's like, "You just won the Super Bowl, man." I loved that.
he just, have you seen it? He just says that he blacked out. He didn't even know what was happening. And he just
Yeah,
was in shock.
it was incredible. Leo Chenal, he only played like 20 something snaps, 27 I think, but he had a really nice game. He had some great plays versus the run. I don't know how good he was in coverage, but I know he had some really good plays getting the edge and stopping the run. So that's another really, really good
Yeah.
player. Props to Brett Veach. He's taken a lot of flack for what he's done with some of that receiving core, but he built one of the best. He built quite possibly the best defense in football. And I'll admit he had some
Yes.
issues with that receiving core, but that defense won us to the Super Bowl. That was an incredible
That is
performance.
that is very true.
And there'll be some questions heading into this offseason without a doubt, but I know we can answer them.
And with that, I think we should head on. What do we think? What do we think the Chiefs free agency is going to look like? What do you advise the Chiefs do?
I
We'll be into that in a moment.
So yeah, I think the Chiefs really have a lot of questions coming into this offseason. Obviously, they have their receiver issues, and then they have some big free agents like Jones and Snead and Tranquil and Gay and Edwards. They've got some big free agents. Yeah, and kind of, what do you think about that? What they might do.
No, I think it's a tough decision all around. It's do you want Jones or Snead? Who is more valuable to you? And you've also those that's the biggest question, but then you've also got questions of the other people, like you said. Edwards, Tranquil. You've also got the punter, Townsend. What are they gonna do with that? And those are all just honestly question marks because we have not heard much from them. I mean, obviously, all of those people seem that they would love to stay with the Chiefs. Jones said that he would love to stay. But at the end of the day, this is a business. Is he going to be able to? And what what is in best interest for the Chiefs? If you're Andy Reid, Bob, what do you do?
Yeah, I think there's really a lot of questions because the one that's been going back through in my head, back and forth, is Snead versus Jones. I would love to re-sign both of them, but I don't know if it's possible. And I've kind of been starting to think if it comes down to it, Jones might be more important as because I love Snead. I don't want to lose him, but when it comes down to it, I think Jones, sorry, might be more important because the Chiefs have a ton of great corners. All Pro McDuffie had a great Super Bowl. Watson and Williams from that same draft class have been developing great, and then Veach has drafted so many good corners and safeties in this draft, or sorry, in lots of draft classes. I think it's gonna be really interesting. What kind of what do you think?
I don't know. For me, currently looking at this, I like special teams a lot for some reason. My question is, what's going to happen with Townsend? Obviously, someone who, in my opinion, saved the Super Bowl for them in a way with the muffed punt and that 57-yard field goal, the help of Moody, of course. So now that they've signed Zeri or whatever his name is, what do they want to do next? Is he going to stay? And what's going to happen there? That's one of the big questions I have for me. And also, I agree with you on Chris Jones. I would like to keep Chris Jones if I'm Andy Reid. But on the other hand, is it worth it in the budget? I mean, when you look at it, it almost makes more sense to me to keep Jones because he's kind of the heart of the offense in many ways. And they maybe want to go get Jones and then like draft a wide receiver and then a defensive few cornerbacks and such to replace L'Jarius Sneed and support the defense.
Yeah, they have a lot of cornerstones, and I think the Chiefs really they can do a lot. I've been researching this. They can do a lot to free up cap space. They can cut guys like MVS or Justin Reed. I don't know if they'll do that, but they can, and they can restructure Mahomes' contract to free like 30 million. They can do I think a lot of stuff. So I think the question for Veach is really does he want to go all in for like a three-peat or a four-peat but maybe be a little bit worse years later because of some dead money and void years, and depending on how he works some stuff in, or does he want to try to keep doing the strategy he's doing of not keeping old expensive guys, drafting young talent, and yeah, I think there's a lot they can do at the receiver position, which is good considering how bad it was this year. Obviously, as I said before, they can cut some guys to free up some cap space, and with that, there's a lot of guys you can go after, Hollywood Brown, Mike Evans, um, Gabe Davis, Darnell Mooney, T. Higgins, maybe Michael Pittman. I don't know if those guys will stay on their teams. It's looking like Evans will hit the market, whether he'll go to the Panthers. I've heard some people say he might look at the Panthers. I feel like he might outprice us a little bit, but there's a lot of stuff we can do at receiver, and even going into the draft, it's a really deep receiver position. There's a lot of guys, Brian Thomas Jr., Adonai Mitchell, Troy Franklin.
Oh, absolutely. It's all true. There's a lot of depth in wide receiver.
Exactly. And then there's also been a lot of interesting kind of conversations going out around the NFL, around stuff that's going on there. So I think we're gonna talk about that a little bit.
All right, yeah. So there's a lot of interesting storylines going around the league right now. Let's start it off just by focusing in on the Chiefs' own division and what it's going to be like to try and defend that next season. Because, of course, the path to the Super Bowl starts in your division.
Hmm.
So, first off, like the Chargers have had some big news this offseason with Jim Harbaugh. What do you got to say about that, Bob?
Yeah, the Harbaugh signing, I think it's really good. I think that was a really good signing. He's proven he can do it at the collegiate level. He's proven he can do it at the NFL level with the Niners. Yeah, I think that's a really good signing. Some people are saying that makes them playoff contenders. I don't think so quite yet. I think there's too many holes on that roster and too many salary cap issues from their now former GM Tom Telesco. I think he dug them in too much of a hole. And yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what the Chargers can do. I think there's a chance they get better, but I'm really not expecting much improvement from the Chargers. I think they could even be worse with some of the cuts they're gonna have to make with guys like Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Mike Williams, unexpected cut from what I've seen. It's yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see. And then some interesting stuff about Raiders head coach Antonio Pierce and what he had to say about thinking he might have the recipe to stop Kansas City. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I personally think that it's kind of BS. The Raiders obviously got in the Chiefs' head, but that was the Chiefs are in a bad stretch right now. Christmas Day, that just kind of the Chiefs were not in a great place right then. We've got to all admit that they weren't doing good then, and the fact that they think that because Mahomes happened to play horrible that day, I think that kind of it's kind of dumb because when you look at the stretch, they had come off of a win to New England, but before that, lost to Green Bay, lost to Buffalo, and I think they were just not in a great stretch that time.
Yeah, yeah,
I personally think I think it's just, I think Mahomes had a bad day. I don't think that they found any kind of secret that the rest of the league hasn't yet.
yeah,
I think that the Raiders have a lot more ahead of them than just because if you can beat Mahomes, okay, you can beat Mahomes. We'll add that to the list of like what the Bengals and Tom Brady. I guess Joe Burrow and Tom Brady because obviously we beat the Bengals without Joe Burrow this season. So add you guys to the list, I guess. Like I don't know, it's not like you guys are making the playoffs anytime soon. So I don't think it's that big of an issue.
yeah. And I mean, we gifted them 14 of those points. Easy. 7 seconds, they get 14 points. They did barely any of that. We gifted them 14 points. They didn't complete a pass for
Exactly.
an entire half. That was a game we really should have won. We just did not
It
play.
was. Not a single offensive touchdown by Las Vegas.
Yeah,
Just
we didn't play well at all. And I'll give them credit. They had a their edge rushers played really well. They played well with how they were able to keep Mahomes in the pocket all day and really contain him well. That was really brilliant from them. I'll give them credit for that. But acting like you found the solution to beat the three-time Super Bowl champs in 5 years it's bogus. It's BS in my book. I really totally agree with you on that.
yeah, I think it's just kind of. What you're gonna say? The Chiefs and the Raiders will always be rivals, but I don't think that it will be one of those anticipated ones anytime soon. I could be wrong though. Maybe they have figured something out, but I seriously doubt it.
I mean, I think there's a chance they get good. I think there's a chance they get good this year, but I don't know how good of a coach Pierce is. I'm glad they made that hire. I think it would have done a lot of bad for that franchise had they let him go. But I don't know how good of a coach he really is. I haven't seen enough from him. But I could see them getting better, but it's going to take a while. I don't think they're going to be
Yeah.
great this year.
So, other than that, around the league, you got most teams just in the state of rebuild, or, well, not rebuild, obviously, free agency, and looking ahead to the draft. You've got a lot of teams like the New England Patriots, Washington Commanders, the Bears, trying to figure out what to do with those high round picks. What do you think is going to happen with the number one pick in the Bears? You think Patriots try and trade up? Because right now, from what I've seen, the two most anticipated picks in the ones that people are most excited to see what happens to is the Patriots pick at 3 and the Bears pick at number 1, obviously.
Yeah, the number one overall pick. I think it's really interesting because there's a lot of different options, and I don't think they're bad. There's of course they could stick at 1 and pick Williams, which is that's kind of what I've been seeing is the most likely option, just based off what I've been hearing from trusted guys like Daniel Jeremiah. So that's what I think they're probably gonna do. And I can't disagree with it because of the security that gives them at quarterback if Williams ends up being really good, because they are going to have to sign Fields this year or next year, not 100% sure. And then yeah, the Patriots pick, I could see them going a lot of ways with it. I they obviously I think they could take a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, Drake May. I don't think they'll be able to trade up. I don't think they'd trade up. They could. I don't see it happening. But yeah, there's a lot of questions with that. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them go with someone like Marvin Harrison Jr. I doubt they'd go with a tackle. I mean, they could, I guess. I don't see it. They could. I bet it's probably going to be a quarterback or Marvin Harrison Jr. or a trade up, like you said. That's probably the main thing I've been seeing.
So, on the subject of the Patriots, what do you think their next step is without? What do you think of the Jared Mayo hire and Belichick walking away?
I was surprised and not surprised at the same time to see Belichick walk away. It was really something that you'd seen coming from a mile away, but didn't. Because there was so much of, I mean, you don't just see the six-time Super Bowl champion head coaches get released all that often. It's not something that happens very much. And they said it was a parting of the ways and everything. But I think in a lot of ways the Patriots wanted to go in a new direction. And that's really something I've been adamant about and I kind of agree with because Belichick's way has always been very tough. You always hear players like Julian Edelman or Brady or Gronk talk about how hard Belichick was. And when you're winning Super Bowls, that works. That can work. That's fine. But when you start losing games and not winning, it's not going to work as well. And then in a new show called Dynasty, showcasing the Patriots dynasty, not sponsored, they there's been a lot of things talking about how Belichick was the coach, Brady kept the team together. And I think once they decided to move on from Brady, thinking he might have been too old, that's when things started to go downhill. That's when they lost the team aspect of the Patriots, and I think that's where they really went wrong.
I think that I think you're right. I think that makes a lot of sense because I agree with you completely that Belichick was there are reports of him being pretty hard on the players, and it makes complete sense that with Brady walking away, the team kind of would have just fallen apart. And also, in that sense, it doesn't surprise me that no the Falcons didn't bother picking him up or such because when you have something like that happen, because I've seen his record is forever tainted by the fact of Tom Brady walking away from that team and going on and winning the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
If I just I don't know if you feel comfortable as someone like the Atlanta Falcons. Do you feel comfortable with Bill Belichick? Although the greatest coach of all time, it was not that has not been good in recent seasons without Brady. And you don't have a franchise quarterback. You're far from it in a place like Atlanta or the Commanders. So if you don't have anyone that he can work with, why would you even bother having? Which is why it makes sense to me that teams like the Commanders, Falcons, Titans.
And then another thing that really surprised me was, the biggest shocker of the offseason, I would say, was the Titans choosing to get rid of their head coach, another guy who worked with the Patriots a lot, Mike Vrabel. That was a shocking
Absolutely.
decision. I don't agree with it at all, in my opinion. I know they had a lot of wins
I
recently, but he's a good coach. In my opinion, he's a really good coach. Kind of, what do you think about that? A little bit.
Yeah, I did not see that coming because it's. I mean, if you look at the record, I guess you can try and justify it, but like the Titans were not. They've competed. I'm okay. So there are two ways you can look at this. You can look at the fact that the Titans have had an aging team. It feels like with their stars of Tannehill and Derrick Henry. Feels kind of like you're an aging team in a way. And you haven't really had playoff success since 2018 when you went to the AFC Championship and got kind of demolished by the Chiefs. Of course, because Chiefs are the best. And so you don't. I get the. I get where they're coming from, but it doesn't make sense logically in the same way. Because, like I said, they weren't. I would not have got rid of him if I were the Titans, just because you guys were 6-11. I mean, it wasn't like it was a horrible season. You guys 6-11. Oh, you can do a lot worse than 6-11. You know what I mean? That was not like last year 7-10. Like it was more. I think the consistency of their losing that is why they got rid of him.
Yeah,
But I mean, even then though, like 2021, like Tennessee Titans 12-5, it doesn't. It's a confusing decision.
yeah,
I can't say I understand it, but I get both sides.
yeah. And really, the roster construction, in my opinion, was a lot worse. Because if you look at who they have at receiver, they traded AJ Brown, who's gone on to be a really good receiver, but he's gone on to be one of the best in the league, for what they ended up getting with that first round pick in Traylon Burks, who hasn't worked out. They got D Hop, who is he's great. He's an elite player. I wanted him this last offseason, but he also and he was great, but they didn't have the quarterback. And with Tannehill's kind of decline, Tannehill going further and further down, and that defense not being as good, I think it was a lot of their losing was more the roster construction, and it's impressive that, in my opinion, it's impressive that he was able to keep it going with wins for that long. And yeah, kind of wrapping up free agency, wrapping up around the NFL. There is a lot more stuff we can talk about next episode, which should be 2 weeks from when you are seeing this. And with that, I hope y'all enjoyed. If you got anything you want us to discuss, you can leave it in the comments. Any feedback is majorly appreciated, as kind of new to this. Hope y'all enjoyed. See y'all in the next one. Bye.